Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Sisk. I'm the director of the English Learner Programs for Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. I apologize for not being able to be with you in person this afternoon, but I did want to take a few moments to review this handout with you that will help you when you're thinking about scheduling your English learners for the 2018-19 school year. So this document is entitled Accommodating and Planning for Your EL Students at the High School Level. So if you'll take a moment, you can get that document out, and you can also look with me on the screen as we go through this very briefly. So to begin with, take a look at the child's 2017 access scores as a guide. The child's 2017 access scores will give you a sense of the child's English language proficiency ability. I've also asked your ESL staff, both at the high school and the middle school level, to be available to help counseling departments when they're thinking about an appropriate schedule for an English learner for the following year. Your ESL teachers will have very valuable insights into what could be an appropriate or an inappropriate course for an English learner based on that child's English language proficiency. So if you look down at the bottom, you will see a very short description of what a sheltered course is. Essentially, a sheltered course is a course that's designed with the English language acquisition needs of an EL student in mind. So you're going to see in a sheltered course various strategies that may include a visual support, hands-on materials, different adapted texts, possibly clarification in the child's first language, and multiple opportunities for the child to practice their oral English skills. So there's a couple additional notes that you're going to see in this document that will help you out when you're thinking about these schedules. So again, I can't stress enough how important it is to get your ESL teachers involved. Your ESL teachers will have insights that will help you when you go through this scheduling process. So if you take a look at number 2, if an L student does not have an ESL service waiver, then they must be scheduled into a high school ESL class. Now your L coordinators or your ESL teacher at your school will know which of those students do and do not have a waiver. You may have some more advanced English learners who need to graduate on time, and they may need to not be scheduled into an ESL course. If that's the case, those students can use the waiver. Your ESL teacher or your L coordinator will have access to that waiver. They can waive taking an ESL class so they can be scheduled into the full load of courses as they move towards high school graduation. They will still get ESL support from the ESL teacher, but they just won't receive that support within an ESL classroom. So if you go up to the top on the right-hand side, number 3, we do have sheltered section codes for the sheltered classes. You can find those in your high school registration handbook, both in the ESL section and also in the back of the handbook where all the sheltered course codes are listed, along with all the other course codes. If you take a look at number 4, you will have many English learners whose first language is Spanish. If that's the case, consider scheduling those students into a Spanish for Native Speakers heritage language class. So these classes can be very beneficial for your English learners whose first language is Spanish because it helps them work on the grammatical aspects, and the difficulty level is high enough that will be challenging for them. They can receive foreign language credit for taking these Spanish for Native Speakers courses. If you have any additional questions about those courses, please get in touch with Ms. Baldwin. She is our World Languages Program Manager. If you take a look at number 5, EL students will also have a variety of different educational skills. So often those students will have, the lower level English learners may have more success in math classes to begin with. So some of those students may come in with very rudimentary mathematical skills, and some may come in with much higher mathematical skills. So just think about the mathematical abilities when you're looking at possibly a lower level English learner being scheduled into a math class. That could be a very good, appropriate decision for those students who don't have strong English skills but do have strong math skills. And then also think about recruiting teachers when you have enough children scheduled in a sheltered course, recruiting teachers to teach in those sheltered classes. If you have any questions about sheltered courses, you can contact me, or you can also contact Amanda Cannon. She's our middle school and high school sheltered class facilitator. Now, if you take a look at the second page, you will see some additional guidance for scheduling considerations for beginning to low intermediate L students. So if you take a look at this top box, and I've highlighted this for you, you're going to get a sense of what type of access scores a beginning to low intermediate L student might have. So your overall proficiency will be somewhere between a 1 to a 2.7, reading from a 1 to a 2.5, writing from a 1 to a 2.5. So what I've got below are some ideas about how you might want to set up that child's schedule. So if you take a look at the math component, depending on the L student's math content knowledge, you might want to consider a pathway from an Intro to Foundations of Math course or a Foundations of Math into a Math 1 pathway. From an English standpoint, many of your lower level English proficient students, your L students, will struggle in an English course. So you might want to consider delaying enrollment in an English course initially, or if you have a higher beginning L student, you may want to choose the High School English to English 1 pathway. From a science perspective, science and social studies, they also have a lot of vocabulary responsibilities, and there's also a high emphasis on reading comprehension, but some of your beginning Ls may find more success if you consider a sheltered earth environmental, world history pathway, or possibly a physical science or world history pathway. So there's a couple ideas for you when you're thinking about those lower to lower intermediate L students. And again, if an L student does not have a service waiver, they need to be enrolled into an ESL class. So your L coordinators and your ESL teachers are very familiar with EdPlan and the different codes for those students in EdPlan, and here's some additional information for both you and them on how those codes could help you when you're scheduling. And as we talked about before, consider a Spanish for native speakers class if that L student is a Spanish speaker. And then down at the bottom, you have a variety of different electives that those students can choose from. So at the very bottom, you will see a couple example schedules. So the first example is for an LEP student with very low English ability and limited content knowledge in their first language. So you can consider that Earth Environmental in the fall, looking at world history in the spring, and then bringing in that math, an Intro to Math, and a Foundations of Math course, and then of course your ESL elective, and then the other electives that child could possibly take to be able to get those 8 credits that they need for that year. So if you have a child with low English ability down here at the bottom, but possibly they have more advanced content knowledge. So you're going to have students who are coming in from other countries who may speak and use very low English ability right now. However, their educations in their first countries are actually quite advanced, in which case you would look at the math pathway, possibly Foundations to Math 1, and then you could also incorporate an English pathway, possibly High School English to English 1, and then of course you have your science and your world history courses, and then you include those electives that may be appropriate for that child. Also, of course, including that ESL elective. And then that would give you those 8 credits. So that's a very simple overview of some ideas when you're thinking about scheduling your intermediate low to your beginning L students. Again, my name is David Sisk. I appreciate your time. Please let me know if you have any additional questions. Thank you, and I hope you have a good afternoon. Goodbye.